Texas just finished fall camp, and it's time to check in on the team's progress on both sides of the ball. Who is making strides? Which guys are still in key battles? And most importantly, how is the team looking overall? Eric and Oline, owner of Inside Texas, comes by to give us the word on how the Texas fall camp went. Inside Texas is your place to stay up to date on your favorite team as they prepare for Sarkisian's second season. Subscribe today at InsideTexas.com. Let's see where things stand currently as the season is just a little over a week away. Without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome back, Eric. So Quinn got named the starter right before scrimmage too. How did he look out there, and why do you think he ultimately got the starting job?
Per the numerous sources we talked to yesterday after the scrimmage, it sounded like that Sark made the right decision. If you just went by yesterday, it was clear that he was more comfortable in the pocket, making plays, stepping up in the pocket, and getting the ball out. Of course, he still had some turnovers, but turnovers in practice are not quite the same as turnovers in game. Situations are different. The defense isn't nearly as off balance. The defense has a tendency to understand what's coming just because they've seen the play so many times. I'm not too concerned by the interceptions. One he had was the receiver fell down. That tends to happen. So he looked good yesterday. He looked sharp for the most part. He had some downfield throws. I think the reason he got the job is because they can work around his strengths and mitigate his weaknesses better. If he's going to make plays from the pocket, Sark can scheme stuff up in that regard, and I think they're going to rely on a lot of play action. Even though the offensive line isn't going to be a strength of the team, Bijan Robinson is.
And speaking of running backs, how is that room operating with the temporary absence of Roschon Johnson, and are the younger guys like Brooks coming along?
The Roschon Johnson injury was unfortunate. That, along with Angelo and Nair getting hurt the week prior, I think got the offense off to a slower start in the scrimmage yesterday. But they are working around Roschon's injury, I would say, decently well because of Jonathan Brooks. Jonathan Brooks has put on some good size. He's hard to hit. He's got great feet and good balance. So it's hard to hit him square and knock him down. So Jonathan Brooks has looked good, and I expect him to get quite a few carries in the first game. They're not going to want to play Bijan a ton. Roschon, if he's back for that game, which is possible, never count him out. It's possible because of how tough he is and how hard he works to get healthy. But I still think we're going to see a whole lot of Jonathan Brooks. I'd imagine he gets at least almost as many carries as Robinson, and he's looked good.
That's good news. How is the receiving game looking after losing Nair for the season and Hall's suspension?
Sark's preference is 12 personnel, and so, that's going to help you overcome any issues at wide receiver because you just don't need as many of them. You have one less. But at the same time, because of those tight ends, that's going to help overcome Nair's injury as well. They're dynamic receivers. All four of those guys are making catches. And when I say that, it's Jatavian Sanders, obviously. It's Jaleel Billingsley, Gunnar Helm, Juan Davis. Gunnar Helm had a nice touchdown reception yesterday in the scrimmage on a beautifully thrown pass by Ewers. He stepped up in the pocket, delivered it with just the right amount of velocity on it and air, and it got right over Jalen Ford's hands. So it was a beautiful play. But all the tight ends are making receptions, and that's going to help at wide receiver. Also helping at wide receiver is if Jordan Whittington stays healthy, then they should be pretty good. When it's 12 personnel, it's he and Worthy. And Casey Kane is coming on quite a bit. When they're in 11 personnel, he's out there. He's going to play regardless of what personnel package is. He's earning more targets. He's an interesting guy. There's ways that he can take advantage of different cornerbacks. If you're smaller or undersized, he's got the catch radius on you, pretty savvy route runner. If you're not the best athlete at corner, you look more like a guy that should be playing safety. He's going to have the athletic advantage on you. So he can win in a lot of ways. And then he has some of the best hands at wide receiver it's probably him and Troy O'Meara as best hands at wide receiver.
And how are the slot guys behind Whittington looking throughout camp, specifically Tariq Milton, Brennan Thompson, and Savion Red?
Slot receiver behind Whittington, if they're in 12 personnel, both those receivers are usually outside. You have one of the field, one of the boundary, but obviously they do go to 11 personnel. Tariq Milton was held out of practice yesterday. I think that was just precautionary. We didn't hear anything about him being injured. Brennan Thompson is working at slot and also behind Xavier Worthy. He might actually be the number two guy behind Worthy at field receiver. And so that's interesting to watch. They're spending a lot of time coaching him up and trying to get him ready. They know they're going to need him. Both those guys, both him and Worthy, are not the biggest guys in the world. So that's something to keep track of as they try to get through the grind of a 12-game season. Yeah, Savion Red, he's turned some heads. I think he might hit a little bit of a wall of late. So he's probably going to have to regroup and regather and pick it back up where he was earlier in the camp. There's a good chance he's going to play. A lot of it's going to come down to health. If Whittington stays healthy, he's going to play as many snaps at receiver as Worthy just about.
And since the offense will likely base out of 12 personnel, meaning 2 tight ends and 2 receivers, can you elaborate for the fans on why that personnel grouping can benefit our offense, especially having a young quarterback?
12 personnel, the value of that with Texas is that they're really four wide. I mean, all those guys have great hands. We talked about the best hands at wide receiver in Casey Kane and O'Meary, but Jatavian Sanders and Juan Davis have as good a hands as anybody on the team too. Exceptional receivers. And then Jaleel Billingsley, I said the value when they got him was they're basically an 11.5 personnel because he's more of a wide receiver than tight end. So 12 personnel is not your typical big blocking tight end and then an H-back. Like both those guys are bigger, they can catch. And I think Sark is going to get very creative within that personnel package. So it sounds more like a slow plodding package. It's not going to be. It's going to be a pretty explosive package. Not quite as explosive with the Lawson there, but they're going to score some big plays. And it's not always going to be to Xavier Worthy or Whittington. You know, those tight ends are going to be featured prominently. I expect all four of them to play quite a bit. And I think Sanders and Billingsley are going to have pretty big years. It's going to depend on the matchups. You know, sometimes Billingsley might get matched up with a DB. It's going to be tougher for him to get open. But if they get him on a linebacker, that guy's in trouble.
And the final piece of the offensive puzzle, we've been hearing reports of a lot of young guys in the offensive line rotation, and that's exciting for the future, but a bit stressful for this coming season. So how is O-line performing throughout camp, and who are the young guys that are looking at immediate starting time?
Well, the offensive line is a microcosm for the whole season. The excitement up with the young guys and the talent, and you know they're going to be good in time, but there's going to be a lot of mistakes. Goes for quarterback with Quinn. You know, there's a high risk reward there. The key for this is to bring the offensive linemen along as slowly as possible, but not to the detriment of the team. The offensive line flat out got worked by the defensive line during the scrimmage. You know, they were having to do some extra running afterwards or extra conditioning. They did not play all that well. But individually, some of those guys are extremely promising. Like Kelvin Banks, he's physically ready and about as mentally ready as you can expect out of a freshman. That's uncommon. The other guys are more physically ready. So they're not quite there with the playbook. They're not quite there with their steps and their techniques, but they're coming along. Athletically, of course, they belong. Size-wise, they belong without a doubt, but they're going to be brought along a little more slowly. You know, Cole Hudson's been out. There's a lot of excitement about him within the camp. It goes back to spring ball. He's going to play a lot at right guard. We expect him to start. He's been held out recently, but he should return for install this week. It's just about where the talent overcomes the experience. The experienced guys at Texas have not played very consistently well, and so those younger guys are going to get a shot faster than they would in what I would say a healthy program when it comes to the offensive line. But there's a lot of excitement there. There's going to be growing pains, and that's going to probably be the story for the season across the whole board.
And then looking at the full picture, how do you think offense will look early in the season with a young quarterback, young offensive line, and missing a couple key starters?
You know, I think they're going to score quite a few points in two of the first three games. You know, obviously that Alabama game in week 2 scares you quite a bit as far as a young team and what the defense is going to be able to do to a young quarterback. The value of 12, again, is being able to run play action, but that's set up by the run. And so if they're not setting up the run versus Alabama, which you don't expect them to have a whole lot of success, at least early in the game, then it's going to hurt the passing game quite a bit. I don't think they're going to have quite as much trouble with Louisiana and UTSA in week 1 and week 3. So I think they're going to have a bit of momentum going into that Tech game in the conference opener. I think they're going to have some games where they really light it up. Quinn is an explosive passer. I think it's an explosive passing game, especially buoyed by the run game. And so I think they're going to score a lot. They will be inconsistent. I think there's going to be a lot of inconsistencies throughout it. You know, you might see a big play for a 70-yarder touchdown, and then, you know, they might have three and outs in a row just because of, you know, freshman mistakes, that sort of thing. They got to play assignment sound, and I don't think they're ready to play assignment sound except for maybe at wide receiver and running back.
It will be interesting to see what Sark schemes up. And now let's hop over to defense. What does the interior defensive line look like at the moment? We have that 6-man rotation, Murphy, Sweat, Coburn, and then Ojimo, Collins, and Broughton. Are they improving and stopping the run and generating a pass rush?
Well, this is why I always talk about trying to factor for zero sum, because, you know, the offensive line is going to have its issues. So does that mean the defensive line is playing better, or is it just playing better because the offensive line has struggles? So it's always hard to delineate the difference there. I will say that defensive line has had its way with the offensive line this camp, and that extended into yesterday. The interior defensive line was Moro Ojimo and Byron Murphy. Alfred Collins has been out for the last couple of weeks, or the last week or two. Vernon Broughton is bringing it. He's been making some plays in the run game and getting in the backfield. And not everything is a stat stuffer for him, but he's playing good team defense and setting other guys up to excel. And Tavondre Sweat, we really heard quite a bit about him in the last week. He had one of his best weeks of practice ever a week ago. So they've got the ability to be very disruptive as pass rushers up the middle. Moro Ojimo is probably the smallest one out of them, is probably the least likely to be a good pass rusher, but he's technically sound. He plays his role. I think he's going to be a very good team defender when it comes on stunts and twists. Byron Murphy, he's chaotic. He can get upfield. He's tough to block, tough to stay in front of. He's going to get his share of pressures on the quarterback. And then Alfred Collins and Tavondre Sweat, when they're ready to go, they're going to be very good interior pass rushers. So on paper, that is a talented group. But if they are deployed to catch blocks and eat blocks to set up the linebackers more like they were last year, then that's a recipe for more of the same.
I haven't heard much about edge this camp. Why is that? And are we seeing more sacks and pressures? And who there, even young guys, are showing some promise?
Well, to me, there's a pretty low ceiling on what we're going to get at edge this year. But if the floor is high because they played the run better, then that's a huge step up from last year. And I think that's kind of where they're headed. So I'm not hearing a ton about pass rush from the edge, but I am hearing that they're playing the run a lot better. They're boxing it in, setting a harder edge, and that's helping out the linebackers quite a bit. It's just not going to be a position of strength. The young guys that they got aren't quite ready. It's not they're not quite as advanced as their counterparts in the 2022 class on the offensive line. So it's going to require a bit more time. This is going to be another year where they're just trying to make do. But that doesn't mean they're going to be as bad as last year. I don't expect that to be the case at all. Barron Sorrell is playing well. Doesn't necessarily profile to being a great pass rusher, but I think he can play the run well. His issues might be, which were kind of the issues last year when he disappeared, were playing at 4-eye. Was he strong enough to hold up the point attack? Not often enough. He's stronger now, so we'll see how he does there. Behind him is Justice Finkley. This is that Jack, of course. He'll play quite a bit. On the other side, it's getting interesting because, Ovi's still the guy there. We knew that once he went to media days that he's going to be someone that they lean on a lot. Yesterday, when they changed up looks, he was playing Sam, your third linebacker. I think that was probably had more to do with DeMarvin Overshown being preserved and put in bubble wrap like Bijan was for the scrimmage. So we didn't see them do too much with Overshown coming off the edge. So that's where they're going to have to get creative with their pass rush because they're not going to get it with their front four, I don't think, unless it comes from the interior. Now, if the interior guys are flushing it, they could flush them into the waiting arms of the edges for sure. One, if you're looking for some hope going into the season, that would be on freshman Ethan Burke. Put on a lot of weight in a short time on campus. Not all of it's good, but all of it's going to help him out because it's all about not getting washed out at the point of attack by a 22-year-old. And so he's holding up pretty well. He's physical. We heard that was part of the eval when you start hearing about a lacrosse player from Westlake. You wonder how physical a kid's going to be, but everybody we talked to said he was physical and he's obviously athletic. He's going to look a lot different after he has a full off season, but I think at this point he's going to play quite a bit. He's earning reps. He finished the scrimmage yesterday with the ones. That doesn't mean he's going to start there or anything. I think that's Ovi's position for sure, but I think he's going to play quite a bit.
A 6'7" edge in Burke would be fun. And I have heard better reports on the linebacking core, especially with Ford and the addition of Diamante Tucker-Dorsey. How are they looking in camp?
The off-ball guys are going to be much improved over last season. To me, it might be one of the biggest improvements across the board on the entire team. I think Jalen Ford has had a nice, quiet camp, but not, I'm fine with that. If you're not hearing a whole lot about the linebackers, sometimes that's good. Diamante Tucker-Dorsey, we've been hearing rave reviews since the moment he stepped on campus. He was playing well in 7-on-7, and that wasn't really his strength. And so his strength is when the pads come on, finding the football, and he's doing a lot better with that. I think that is a function of the defensive line, obviously having its way with the offensive line, and the fact that the offense is very predictable the further you get into camp. You've seen everything the offense is going to do, so you kind of know how to attack it. They're going to be improved over last year, and I think Tucker-Dorsey is going to be an improvement over Overshown, and I think over the Overshown from last year, and I think Jalen Ford's going to be an upgrade over Brockemeyer. So, but it's also going to help that they get better play up front, and that's also has a lot to do with the edges playing more under control, keeping their lane integrity against the run. So, I expect those guys to have a good year. I think they're going to play well laterally. I think they're going to do a good job sniffing out the screen game. I think they're just more tailor-made to be off-ball linebackers than what we saw last year.
Is Overshown's new edge focus paying off? Because you hear players hyping his performance in camp during their pressers.
Yeah, Overshown to me is going to be – it gives the potential for this defense to be much improved if what we're hearing about really bears true on the field. They're definitely trying to bring him off the edge. They're selling that on the recruiting trail to players, and that's holding true. But the fact that they kept him out much of the scrimmage tells you how important he is, because it wasn't that he was hurt or anything, because he was doing all the conditioning afterwards. They're just trying to keep him healthy. I think he means that much. He's going to play a lot of Sam linebacker this season, and that's going to allow them to move him around. But a lot of this is the function of Diamante Tucker-Dorsey, and I probably should have mentioned David Benda had a really strong scrimmage yesterday too. So they've got three guys that they feel good about on off the ball. Obviously, Overshown could play there too, but the utility of those three guys is the ability to move Overshown outside and try to create a pass rush. They really like his innate skills at it. He's quick off the ball. He bends well. He's an elite athlete for that. He's kind of undersized for it, but when you're trying to get after the pass rusher, that doesn't hurt as much. We've seen some really small defensive end put up big sack totals in the Big 12. So I'm anxious to see if what we're hearing is bears true, but positive early signs, and I think he can help lift the ceiling of the defense this season. He's also had a couple sacks coming straight up the A gap too, so they're bringing him from different directions, and hopefully that adds some confusion to the offenses.
Defensive backs seem to be playing more sound with added aggression. What's the word on corner with the addition of Watts and even younger guys like Jalen Gilbo receiving praise?
Yeah, corners are, it's a mix of rush man and quarters coverage. I think that the thing that is sticking out to me there is, they're playing more technically sound with the ones. They're not getting beat over the top a whole lot. Going throughout camp, I can only count once or twice where either Watts or Jameson got beat deep. So that hasn't happened with too much frequency. So that's a positive right there. If they just play sound coverage defense, I think they're going to be improved. Jameer Johnson is coming on fast. He was named as probably the most improved player on the team since the spring till now, and he'll play a lot. Jahdae Barron has missed some time. He's playing star. That's offered Jalen Gilbo the chance to get in there and get a lot of reps, and he's taking advantage of that. He's impressing quite a bit. He's making coverage plays. He's making plays in space, tackling. He's physical. He's a smart football player. So we'll play a lot. So Barron's going to be the starter, but due to his injury, I think they feel a lot more comfortable about where Gilbo is. So they're in a good spot. Jameson, of course, he's making the same interceptions he always does in practice. You don't know if that's a function of him having the understanding of what the quarterback's going to do based on the looks and all that. We know he's a bit of a gambler. Is he going to limit the mistakes this season? That remains to be seen. He's a big play threat still. I don't think he and Watts are in any danger of losing their job just yet. But Jameer Johnson's going to play a lot this season.
And how is their performance at safety? Are they communicating and playing better?
Safety probably still doesn't have the level of talent that they're looking for. That's why you get excited about a guy like Derek Williams coming in, but playing much more sound. And to me, that's kind of it's a consistent across the board with what we're hearing. Guys are playing more sound. We're not hearing that they're making all these blow up plays or making these super athletic plays. They're just doing their job a lot better. I think the safeties are going to be upgraded similar to how the linebackers are. They're just going to be more assignment sound. This was an issue with linebackers last year, but it was at safety. I think they're going to give better, consistent effort. I think they're going to be in the right place at the right time a lot more often. Again, that's going to help. That's going to be aided by the defensive line and the linebackers in front of them. It's just a lot more complementary defense. They are on the same page from what we're hearing about. Communication's a lot better. If you're communicating, it means you know what your assignment is. And so I think they're going to win by or improve by being more sound. They're not going to be a great defense because I don't think they have a ton of individual talent. But it sounds like they're on the same page. Whereas last year you could tell that there was a lot of discombobulation.
Cool. And I normally don't touch on special teams, but since we have a new kicker and a new punter, what's the word on their ability so far during camp?
Yeah, kicking and punting is going to be an adventure this season. That's hopefully it never comes down to a microcosm of your season going to special teams, but kind of like the offensive line is going to be an adventure, and some of the games Quinn has are going to be an adventure. Special teams are as well. You're going to see some doinks from 30 yards, and you might see Will Stone hit one from 52. Never know. I think Stone is going to be a good, solid kickoff specialist. Kicker is still up in the air between him and Bert Auburn. That might come down to how they play when the nerves are hidden in front of 100,000 people. Punting is pretty inconsistent. They brought in a new punter from Texas Wesleyan, eligible immediately, and he had one punt in the scrimmage yesterday that caught everybody's attention. They're like, who the hell is that? Where did we even? They were wondering where that guy even came from because he was so new. So I don't know. The punting is inconsistent too. You can get a hold of one minute and go right off the side of your foot the next. So I don't know what to make for it. I will never put my reputation on a bunch of unknown specialists. So it's going to be an adventure. I feel confident in that. They're going to miss Dicker both as a punter and a kicker.
Great stuff as always, Eric. I learned a lot. Please let the fans know where they can stay up to date on the team as the season kicks off.
Yeah, well, it's going to be an interesting season over on Inside Texas. We're following a team that's very exciting, but also there's going to be so many unknowns going into it. I can't remember a season where there's this many question marks going in, but I think to me that adds some excitement. It adds some hope for the future too, because you do see the young talent. We'll be covering it all at InsideTexas.com. We've got a special for the next week or so for $1 for 4 months, so come check us out.
And that's a wrap on Eric and Oline. Make sure to go subscribe over at Inside Texas. Thanks for hanging out. Watch some more of my videos here. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you want to support quality Texas content. As always, book 'em.